Politics, commentary, entertainment, sports, news and opinion now. Here is Steve Malzberg.
Israel accepted and Hamas rejected the Egyptian ceasefire proposal of July 15th. Now, I want you to know that at that time, the conflict had claimed some 185 lives. Only on Monday night did Hamas finally agree to that very same proposal, which went into effect yesterday morning. That means that 90%, a full 90% of the fatalities in this conflict could have been avoided had Hamas not rejected then the ceasefire that it accepts now.
All right, folks, Benjamin Netanyahu earlier today joining us on the Malzberg panel, which you know and you love and you got to have, of course, is Republican strategist and political consultant Noelle Nikpour and host of the Christopher Hahn Show. What's his name again? Oh, yeah, Christopher Hahn. And let me start with you, Noelle. Not only did Benjamin Netanyahu say that 90% of the deaths occurred in Gaza after Hamas rejected the first ceasefire, but also proof now coming forward of tunnels that touch mosques and schools, rocket launchers that were launched from civilian areas by schools, and the same being reported and videos being released by Indian TV, as we showed at the top of the show, British TV, French TV. Is this going to change the media's narrative, do you think?
I think I think it's going to have to change the media's narrative.
All right. What about it, Christopher?
Look, I mean, I've been pretty consistent on this. Regardless of what the media says, I believe Israel has a right to defend itself. I think that most New York Democrats believe that. And I don't want to try to condemn the media for the way they're covering things. I think the media like to find the bloodiest and the goriest scene and then sensationalize it no matter what they do on any side of the aisle who's covering any kind of story. So, look, I think that Israel's got to do what Israel's going to do.
You don't think that there's an inherent bias against Israel in the media?
I think everybody likes to claim bias in the media when the media isn't reporting things the way that they like to report it. I don't like to claim bias when it's not going in favor of a candidate or when it's on a different when it might be presenting a side of a story that I don't necessarily agree with. So I'm not one of those guys who cries bias in the media. It's just not the way I am.
Noelle, what do you think?
Well, you've got to remember who started all this. I mean, Hamas started all this. I mean, they have found and closed 35 tunnels, rockets. I mean, you've got to remind yourself where this thing began in the first place. So I think it's very interesting, especially people like Jimmy Carter. You've had people come out, basically trying to put a spin on it. For Hamas. I mean, Israel knows what it's doing. We are a staunch ally and supporter of Israel, so let them be.
Let me ask you something about what Noelle just said, and that has to do with Jimmy Carter. He was quoted in a piece in foreignpolicy.com. He actually co-authored it with Mary Robinson and some other elders, as they put it, calling for Hamas to be recognized by Israel, that they're legitimate political actors. What is wrong with him, Christopher?
I'm not going to try to get inside the mind of Jimmy Carter. He is responsible for one of the only lasting peace processes in the Middle East, that being the peace between Israel and Egypt. So while I do think that we need to listen to what he says sometimes, I don't know that I agree with him that they should automatically be recognized. I do think, though, that at some point there's got to be a negotiation between Palestine and Israel to settle this conflict, and we've got to figure out who the best person is to negotiate with. And I'm not going to pretend to know who that is. But I will say this about former President Carter. He is the one who authored the only lasting peace in the Middle East, so we should listen to him somewhat.
Well, he has been nothing but anti-Israel, and that's putting it generously, Noelle, ever since he left office. And it's always been blame Israel first, no matter what the circumstance, over these many years since he served in office.
You know what? Former President Carter is a humanitarian to his own detriment. And I feel like, what is he just going to be a representative? Maybe Hamas should hire him as their publicist, because we don't negotiate with terrorists. I think that this is so evident that he's almost anti-Semitic. I mean, I think this was awful what he came out and what he said. And I mean, just think about, his foreign policy. He is a foreign leader. I disagree. Look at the Iranian crisis. Look at, the overthrow of the Shah and Ali Khamenei. And I mean, I just think that for all good he's done, I think that he has countered that with bad. And I think coming out and saying this, his true colors.
All right, let's move on to Ebola. And I don't understand, Christopher, why we haven't done what the Brits have done with some of their airlines and some other countries have done, United Arab Emirates, and banned flights in and out of some of these affected African countries where the Ebola virus is. We now have reports confirmed that there are 6 people at least being tested for Ebola in the United States. How far are we going to go before we say, hey, this could be really serious?
Well, I mean, unlike those countries, the United States has a capitalist system, fully capitalist system, where the airlines, we have to have a really good reason for public safety that is definite, definitive, and backed with evidence before we act.
How about a disease that kills 70% of the people who get it, and there's no cure for it? Is that a reason?
Yeah, but we've got to be quick to say that it's being spread in a certain way, and that by banning flights, that would alleviate the concern. In the United States, we can't just do that. We've got to have evidence. And the CDC, I think that we're getting close to saying that. Don't get me wrong. But in the United States, we can't just act unilaterally as a government.
Noelle, why can't? Well, let me ask Noelle, why is the United States got this different standard? Why can't we act unilaterally? We have to protect our citizens.
I think that we should ban flights. I think that we should have done this even before Air Emirates did it. I think we should have been one of the first ones that did it. I hope that it's not going to be too little too late. But I think that right now we're dealing with something nobody knows. We're dealing with an unknown, and the CDC doesn't seem like they, have gotten everything together. So I fear that we should stop this and then maybe resume.
I am with you. We're coming back with Noelle and with Christopher. But before we go, do you think the president should be impeached? We'd love to hear from you, folks. So go now to Newsmax.com/Obama poll. That's Newsmax.com/Obama poll. Vote. Yes, he should be impeached. No, he shouldn't be impeached. We'll tally all the votes. And eventually, I don't know when, but eventually, we will bring you the results. I promise you. So more of the Malzberg panel when we come back. If in the meantime you want to see how to contact us on social media, here's how.